Hi guys, and welcome to part 84 of Skyrim Mod Sanctuary. In this video I'm going to be showing you the Skyrim Memory Patch. This is something people have been asking me to cover for some time, and I'm sorry I've taken my time on this, but I did want to test this really thoroughly. I thought it was very important indeed. I also wanted to wait for some more stable and easier to install versions which are now available, so that people didn't have to basically become programmers in their own right. The process is still a little technical, it is a little more difficult than the average mod, and as such this video is going to reflect that. It is going to be a lot more technical than my usual videos. It will also be involving quite a lot of testing. I want you to see the sort of things I've been doing and the sort of things you can do to first of all install this and then check to see if it's made a difference, if it has helped your stability, if it has stopped crashes, infinite loading screens, freezes and that type of thing. So, first of all, why is this even necessary? Well, to explain that I have to explain a little bit about how Skyrim works. And I'm not going to go into terrible detail here. In fact, I'm going to simplify this to the point of, well, I'm going to oversimplify this. However, it should give you at least some basic understanding. When Skyrim first starts up, what it actually does is it reserves a couple of blocks of memory for itself. It does a lot more than that, obviously, but that's what I want you to focus on. It allocates 2 blocks of memory. And what it does is it allocates 256 megabytes of memory for each block. And then it uses those blocks. And if you think of the block as a container, it contains stuff that needs to be remembered. Obviously, that's what memory is. As that block fills up, it will get closer and closer to the limit. Once it reaches the limit, in this case 256 megabytes, the game will then allocate a new block, another block, so you will get a second block of 256 megabytes, and, things will carry on. The problem is, Skyrim seems to be horribly bad at that. So, what actually happens when that second block gets allocated is crashes, freezes, infinite loading screens, and so on. And I'm actually going to show you this in action by pushing my system to the point where it crashes. I'm going to actually show you this, and if you recognize this, if you say to yourself, my god, this has happened to me all the time, this patch may well be the thing for you. Now, before I actually show you this, I'm going to show you a tool that's going to help you track what is happening in your system. That tool is called Memory Blocks Log, and it's actually by the creator of the patch itself. I believe it's Sheson or Shison. My apologies for not knowing the pronunciation. So the guy that actually created the patch has also created a tool that will allow us to see what is happening in these 2 blocks that I was talking about earlier. Now there are other tools to do this, but in actual fact this tool is probably the simplest for you guys, and it's very easy to use. It's actually an SKSE plugin, and you can literally go along to the Nexus page, download with Manager, and you can then activate it from there. It really is that easy to install, and you'll find the files in your Skyrim data SKSE plugins, and you'll see I now have a memoryblockslog.dll and a memoryblockslog.ini ini file. If I edit this ini file, you can pretty much leave this absolutely as it is. The only reason I'm showing you this is there is the top thing says enable log true. If you change this to false, basically what it does is it stops the logging process. So you don't have to uninstall this mod once you finish with it. You can leave it there and just change this to false, save it. So if I change that to false and then save it, it will then disable the mod without needing to remove, which is a nice feature. And I'm actually going to leave this folder open because as long as you don't change any of those values, the log itself gets placed in the same folder. So this is actually where I'm going to be checking the numbers. So let me boot up the game. Let me boot up Skyrim via SKSE and show you the problem. Now, for the sake of this testing, I have not got anything like the stable U-grids to load or anything like that installed. I am using ENB, so I do have EN Boost enabled, which basically takes care of the graphics textures, which is nice already. I mean, that already helps. And as you can see, I'm here at the Windhelm docks, which is a notoriously memory-heavy place to be. This is a good place to do the testing. This is the Windhelm docks. And you can see I'm getting about 60 frames a second. I've got VSync on, so it's capping. If you look in the top left corner, that is the ENB reporting my frame rate. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good here. This is where I'm going to be doing all of my testing. Now, I'm actually going to quit the game now and show you the log just from having been here. Oh, and my U-grids to load is set at the default 5. I've not pushed anything beyond normal. I obviously have quite a lot of mods installed, but not a huge number compared to some. I have things like immersive patrols and a few other mods that add extra NPCs, and that is going to be important later on, as I will show you. So, once back on my desktop, you can see I now have memory blocks log.log. If I edit that, you can now see that I have this output here. And I've got block 1 and block 2. These are the important blocks. And this list of numbers represents how many megabytes are being used by block 1 and the one on the right, block 2, and so on. And as you can see, as I roll down, the memory is slowly increasing. And just before I quit, it was in fact using 234 megabytes, which is quite a lot. But it has not reached the 256 megabyte limit, and I had no problems whatsoever. So let's go back in game again and give it some problems. Okay, back in game again at the same spot. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spawn some more NPCs, and the reason for that is NPCs, believe it or not, well, they use quite a lot of memory. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type help Windhelm guard. It's best to use Windhelm guards, otherwise they all start fighting each other. And then I'm going to do player place at me and the bottom one FF001E61. If you don't know how to open your console, it's usually the key to the left of the 1 key. It's pretty important that you know how to do this sort of thing if you really want to test this. That has now added one guard right next to me. Okay, let's add 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've now got 10 guards. There we go. 10 guards added to Windhelm, and they're pushing Kaju around. Well. Right, let's add another 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Was that 10? Oh, whatever, 21. There you go. It's either 20 or 21 extra guards. You might be noticing the frame rate going down a little bit there. Okay, right. Let's get a bit more careful now. Let's just add another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, no problem. 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're now at 30 guards. 30 guards. And the docks is getting pretty crowded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 35. Another 5 maybe? This will be 36, 37, 38. And there you go. Crashed. 38. It usually occurs here between about 36 and 38 for me. As you can see, I've completely crashed up. Total locked. I've got no control whatsoever. It's time for Control-Alt-Delete. Task Manager. TESV.exe. End process. Yes, thank you very much. And now I'm going to go along to the plugin and I'm going to edit it once more and look at what happened. As you can see, the memory starts climbing, climbing, climbing. And just before it crashed, the first block hit 256 megabytes. Coincidence? I don't think so. So as you can see, basically, 38 guards extra on Windhelm, and my system crashes. And I've got a very, very good system. I have got very cautious settings, so I've not pushed anything ridiculous. I've got quite a few mods installed, but nothing crazy. And it didn't take much before it crashed horribly. But it's not just spawning of guards and things like that that will push the memory a little too much. Another main culprit for this are the UGrids to load tweaks. Now, if you don't know what UGrids to load are, basically it's how far ahead the game loads Skyrim for real. Rather than just some fake scenery that looks fairly bad, it loads in the actual game, it loads in NPCs and so on, and things are going on there. The default is 5 grids. And a lot of people like to push this. If you've ever wandered around Skyrim and you just find the world pops into existence about 100 meters ahead of you, you're noticing your UGrids loading. Either that or you've got your settings for trees appearing very, 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 very low. But it's usually UGrids to load. And if you push that to, say, 7 or 9, you get a much nicer looking game. Before I do this, I am going to warn you that there are side effects to doing this, even if you get it stable. And it's not something I generally, as a rule, recommend. I do know people do it and don't have many problems, but even if you do it just to 7, there will be some side effects. You may not notice them. They may be so minor you will not notice them, but there will be the odd thing. For example, the typical one, the famous one, is quests being completed or glitched because you get close enough for the quest to start activating, but you're not actually close enough for the quest to do what it's supposed to do. The typical one is a giant suddenly dies. You just get a message. You have slain the giant at such and such a thing. Report back to whoever gave you the quest. The giant has somehow died not a million miles away from you, but a little far away from you. Things like that can happen, and they almost certainly will if you start pushing them. However, a lot of people push to 7 anyway. It's like a trade-off. 9 is pushing your luck. The game will look better, but you are pushing your luck. You're probably going to find a lot of mods begin to misbehave, and so on. 11, game looks great, but I think you're in crazy land now. 13, 15, wow, but don't be complaining that your mods are throwing glitches, is my general rule. Even if you can get it stable, and I'm saying that in advance just so you don't get too excited, start doing this and don't watch the rest of the video. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push my UGrids to load to 9, which is a pretty good number. Now, I've checked around for the best settings for this, and I found a link to a forum on this. I think the information is pretty good. It was pretty stable for me. I will put a link down below, but I'm not actually an expert on UGrids to load, so I'm trusting the general consensus that these numbers seem to be fairly accurate. They seem to be confirmed in multiple places. So I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to add them to my Skyrim ini, and then save this. Now Skyrim will use UGrids to load 9. Which is, a lot. So let's see what happens now when I boot the game up. Okay, my game loaded, so far, so good. Now what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to put God mode on, TGM, so I can't die. I'm also going to put clipping mode on. TCL allows me to basically run through objects and fly and so, which is pretty good. I'm also going to set player.set AV speed mult to 400. Now that's about 4 times faster than normal, but it's not super fast, but it'll give us a good idea. I've also left the frames per second. So here I'm, and there we go. Did not take long, did it? Okay, let's have a look at what the log said this time again. Yep. 256, there you go, same thing pretty much. And just to show you what happens if I push it further, I'm going to push my UGrids to load to 11. Now, as you saw, I pretty much was at the limit with UGrids 9. I can tell you now in advance that 11 pushes the limit beyond that, and I don't even need to move. And you will see what happens when I load the game this time. Okay, so I'm going to load the game this time, and we will see what happens. Well, I can actually tell you what's happening because it's been a few minutes now and I'm still on the loading screen. I've got the dreaded infinite loading screen, which is exactly what I was expecting anyway. Okay, as you can see, UGrids to load 11 really not happening, and if I once again go back to the log file and edit it, as you're going to see, 256. And because it didn't crash, it just went into an infinite load. It just sat there at 256 and didn't go anywhere, which is pretty much exactly what I expected. We have now demonstrated the problems you're going to have because of this limit, really, on the memory. Oh, and if you're wondering, can you get the infinite loading screen without the UGrids to load? The answer is yes. If you load a game, or you exit out of an inn and for some reason the game decides to spawn a certain number of creatures and that takes you over that 256 memory thing, yeah, you'll get infinite loading screen. You may be able to do it a few times, maybe you'll get out one time, maybe you won't get out the next. It can be random, but yes, it can happen. So there are plenty of ways to hit this limit. So if you are finding that is happening, this is something you might want to investigate. Okay. So there's the problem. Let's talk about fixing it. Well, if the problem is that the game is unstable when assigning the second block, all you need to do is remove the need to assign that second block. And of course, the best way to do that is to start off with more memory from the get-go. Start off with 512 megabytes and hopefully you will never need another block to be assigned. And that is exactly what Chesson's patch did. It changed the SKSE loader to assign more memory to that block at start. Now, originally, the way you fixed it was by recompiling SKSE. You had to make some changes to the SKSE code and basically recompile it yourself. It required a programmer's tool. It required a little bit more technical knowledge than most people were comfortable with, I have to be honest, and it was a little daunting. However, don't worry, there are two alternatives already out at the time of making this video. The first and most obvious is SKSE itself. The SKSE team have decided that the code is solid, that the patch is a great idea, and they have added it to version 1.70. Which at the time of making this video is in alpha, so you can test it, but it has a few other features as well, which is why it's in alpha. It's not the current recommended version, but if you want this patch, it's a good alternative. I've been running it for a week now, and once I got it installed correctly, it's been working perfectly. It's been working absolutely perfectly. So this is probably the way most of you are going to use this, especially once it comes out of alpha. If you're watching this video and the current build is 1.7 or later, then it ships with this patch and you can enable it in the settings very easily. The other alternative for people who are not comfortable using an alpha build, or for people who choose not to or cannot use SKSE, there is also something called SSME, the Skyrim Startup Memory Editor. And this is a very good alternative. I tested this for a week, very stable, same effect. Both ways of doing it will give the same results. I will quickly cover installation for both of these very quickly. They're not that difficult, and if you are thinking of patching the memory, you should be competent enough to install these fairly easily. But SSME is at the moment up to version 1.800, and you need to download it manually. And once you've downloaded it manually, I recommend extracting it to a folder, but you can actually take this direct from there. And all you need to do is copy the DLL file that come inside that archive and the ini file. You need to copy them and then go along to your Skyrim folder, not the data folder. This is the folder where you will find the tesv.exe file, or you might not have .exe if you have extensions hidden. It might just say tesv. But if you see things like Skyrim Launcher, tesv, you're in the correct folder. For me, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Skyrim. And just paste them there. And believe it or not, this mod will work right out of the box. If you edit the ini file, it does give you some values you can change. For now, don't think about it. Just be aware of the fact that this number means first block is 512, and this number means the second block is 256, which are the recommended values. You also need settings, give firstborn to Chesson equals 1 left as is. So pretty much when you first start testing, you don't need to change anything. And that's it. That mod is installed and will work, and it will work quite happily in conjunction with an ENB as well, so don't worry about that. I had no problems. For SKSE, I always recommend downloading the archive and installing as I show in my SKSE video. I will put a link around about here. However, there is an installer you can use, but there are downsides to it that I'm not going to cover in this video. But I've downloaded SKSE 107, and I'm going to go into that folder, and I am going to take the data folder, right click, and I am going to add to archive, and I'm going to call that archive, this is just the data folder, SKSE 10700 scripts. I'm going to create that. I am then going to drag it out to my desktop. You'll probably see why in a second. The next thing I'm going to do is select all of the SKSE loose files and press Ctrl-C or right-click and copy, but not the data folder. I'll leave the data folder out. I've probably explained that 1,000 times, but I'm going to go along to my Skyrim folder once more. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste. And of course I already have SKSE 10616, so I need to overwrite it. So I'm going to do this for the next 6 conflicts, copy and replace. That has now installed the correct SKSE DLL files, but not the correct script. And it is important that you update the scripts as well if you're doing it the same way as I do. So Nexus Mod Manager, I need to add mod from file, SKSE 10700 scripts. And now I am going to uninstall the previous scripts and install the new scripts. Yes to all. So now I've got SKSE installed, and I need to go along to my data folder, to the SKSE folder, and I need to open up the skse.ini file. If you do not have one, you need to create one. If you don't know how to do that, simply just go new text document and then rename the text document to be skse.ini. And I'm going to edit that. And these are the lines you're going to need typing in. Memory, in square brackets, default heap initial alloc MB equals 768 and scrap heap size MB equals 256. The more astute of you will be thinking, shouldn't that be 512? And the answer is no. The way the SKSE team have decided to use the numbers is this is the total of the memory blocks. For all I know, this is actually the correct way to do it, but basically it will actually, you will have 512 for memory block 1 and 256 for memory block 2. Basically 768 minus 256, and there you get your 512. Don't think about it too much. If you do in SKSE, the default number here should be 768. If you put 512, nothing will break, but it will be the exact same as the vanilla game's memory management. If you don't have this skse.ini file, it will be the exact same as the default vanilla memory management. So, you can use the latest version of SKSE, but if you don't create this setting in the SKSE ini section, you will not get the benefits of the patch. But perhaps that's, for some people, going to be good because they don't want it. Who knows? So, there it is, installed. Whichever method you've got, it actually doesn't matter. I'm going to leave the SKSE one installed. Now it's time to test and show you the effects. Okay, back in game, and this time hopefully the colour setting's correct for my recording. And let's see what we can do. First thing we're going to do, U-Grid is set to 5. I went back to the default. We're going to try summoning some Windhelm guards again. So player.place at me FF001E61. Here we go. This is one guard, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there we go, 20 guards. Should easily be able to handle 20 guards, of course. Oh god. He says falling off, excuse me. The advantage of being able to no-clip out. Right. Let's try another 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All well and good. Alright. So this is where it starts getting interesting, isn't it? Let's go for another 10. Let's just go straight for 40. If we can't get to 40, what was the point, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, or 11. Not sure how many. But there we go. 40-ish. Okay. Let's push it a little bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 50. I mean, we've gone from 38 to 50. Let's push it more now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 guards. That's 70. 70 guards. Alright, let's push it a little bit more. 100 guards. I'm sounding like the Count from Sesame Street, aren't I? We need lightning strike. You will notice my frame rate is beginning to suffer, but I have not crashed. I have 100 guards here. My frame rate has gone completely garbage, but I'm having no problems. But why stop there, eh? Let's see what we can get going here. 150 Windhelm guards on the docks. And still stable. Okay. 200 Windhelm guards. My frame rate is now at 25, which is pretty atrocious for my system. But we're still not crashed. 200. Okay. That's 250 guards and 300 guards. I have a frame rate hovering around 10 to 12 frames per second, and I think some of the guards are drowning. But 300 guards, and we have not crashed. I crashed at 38 without the patch. I have managed to get up to 300. I have no idea what I could push it to because it's kind of pointless. I mean, I couldn't play. The frame rate is so bad now. I'm literally at the mercy of my graphics card now, and my graphics card is a GeForce 780 GTX overclocked. So I'm pretty sure I can run as many mods summoning creatures as possible without crashing. Is that Kajo trying to get his way through? No, there he is. Well done. Well done, that man, for getting through 300 guards. So as you can see, a major improvement. And of course, let's check the memory blocks log after that particular run and see what it said. And as you can see, it very quickly went over the 256 limit and kept climbing. Now 512. Oh, look how close we were. If I'd have probably gone to about 350, we would have crashed. There are limits to this, obviously, but I think 300 guards in one of the most memory-intensive places in the game, apparently. Apparently that dock uses a lot of memory anyway, and I added 300 guards to it. I think that would classify as a success. Probably don't want to push it more than that, not just because of the stability problems I will then get, but because 10 frames a second is pretty appalling. However, that's just one test. Does it allow us to push the U-grids to load a little further? Okay, so there we are, U-grids to load, and let's check this out. God mode, no clipping, and player.set AB speed mult to 400 again. Now remember, without the patch, this U-grids to load pretty much crashed now. Bit of a stutter to be expected. Now I'm running about 4 times, well no, I am running exactly 4 times faster than you can run, and sprinting 4 times faster actually than you can sprint, which is a fairly good test for how the game will perform. But as you can see, it's still not crashed. Some minor stutters occasionally, but pretty damn stable. Now, you are going to be looking at this and seeing trees still... Let me climb up a little bit so you can see better. You're still going to see trees popping in. The U-grids are loading earlier, but of course you need to tweak the trees so they appear in full detail earlier. Same with the grass. The grass is only going to appear as I get very close to it. There you can go. But in the distance you will see objects such as castles, rocks, and so on, all popping into existence a lot earlier than they otherwise would. And, oh, a little bit of a technical glitch there. This is 9. Okay. Right, you see that? Killed a giant located at Bleakwind. As you can see, I've just killed a giant, probably down there somewhere. Because I'm using U-grids to load 9. Which is, you know, it is a problem. Now, let's change the speed... Oops. To 1,000, not 10,000. And now we're pushing it even more. Now we're loading in those U-grids fast and furious, and you will see the stutters increasing slightly. But in actual fact, the amount of stutters I'm getting is pretty small. And if I were to play like this and not set the speed multiplier so hard, if I left it at vanilla, I might never notice any of the stutters. There might be one stutter every now and again, so it's pretty damn nice actually. There you go. Begin to get more of them. So, I would say that classifies as pretty damn stable. However, I would say that was a bit of a bug. That will be nothing to do with the mod and everything to do with the fact that I'm using such high U-grids to load. And I'm afraid that is the sort of thing you may start seeing if you push your U-grids a huge amount. But that was 9. Let's see... Oh, I'm a bit peckish. Let's see what our log tells us. Okay, having a look. And... oh, as you can see, we went up to about 369, so we still had some room to spare, actually. Quite a bit of room to spare. Now again, if I was running U-grids to load 9 and using mods that spawned 50 or 60 extra NPCs per cell, of course this number would rapidly go up. However, let's push it some more. You remember U-grids to load 11? I couldn't even load the game. Couldn't even load the game. Let's try that one and see what happens. U-grids to load 11. We got infinite loading on the last time without the patch. Wonder how long it'll take this time. There you go. Took just less than 20 seconds. 20 seconds and it loaded. Let's have a look at the frame rate. You will, however, notice that the frame rate is fairly low. It will shift as I look around, but it is fairly low. I am loading in 11 grids distance, which is rather a lot. Let's just do a quick test. And let's do with 400. We load it in. No guarantee it's going to be stable though. So far, so good. So, with the patch, UGrids to load 11, which wouldn't even, you couldn't even load a game without the patch, is, well, so far, pretty good. And in fact, actually seems... Is it me, or is it stuttering less? Mind you, this area didn't stutter that much. There was one. So now we're loading in even further. And I will reiterate, if you're going to push UGrids 9 and 11, you are going to get problems. But you also are going to have to increase things like the distance you can see trees and grass. Otherwise, you kind of lose some of the effect. Because as you can see, the trees and the grass are popping in very late anyway. 7, you probably don't have to worry too much, although I would still push the trees a little more. And again, if you're not flying, the grass is harder to see. If you're going along the ground at this level, it's a little harder to see things popping in. But as you can see, that's pretty damn stable. But look at that. Look at how far I can see. The castles over there, all loaded in. The mountains have already got rocks formed on them. Let's really go mad again. 1,000. I mean, look at this. Without the patch, UGrids to load 9 crashed at speed 400. With the patch, I've got UGrids to load 11, and I'm running along with basically 10 times the normal speed. And again, yes, I am getting stutters. But so far, no crash. I would say on the whole, this patch is doing its job and doing it damned well. And how does our log look this time? 424, still not that bad. I could possibly push it to 13. I'm not going to, because I think by now you get the idea. At a certain level, I'm going to have so many NPCs, or I'm going to push the UGrids to load so high, I will actually get more than 512. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to change the settings in, for example, in the SKSE one, under the ini file, you're going to have to push this value up to maybe 1024, but if you do, you're probably going to have to push this up to 512. But if you're going to start doing that, I suggest you go along and visit the various pages discussing this patch. I will leave links down below and find out a lot more details. In this video, I'm just showing you the basic effects of the default settings. But I think you can agree those effects are pretty amazing anyway. So in the end, what's the verdict? Is it worth installing this patch? If you are getting freezes, crashes, infinite load screens and so on, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say there is a very good chance this will fix your problem. An exceptionally good chance this will fix your problem, and people are even reporting getting performance boosts, although I wasn't noticing that much difference. Well, I noticed no difference. But, if you're getting the stability problems, definitely you want to use this patch. What about people who don't have the stability problems and not noticing it? Should you use it? Well, there's no reason not to, as far as I can see. There doesn't seem to be any downside to this whatsoever. As I said, if you push the numbers further than the default ones, if you push those numbers higher, you may crash your system, but you'll know about it because it will crash before you have time to load. You'll start loading a game and it will crash. Usually that's what happens. But if you leave the default settings, even if you're not getting those crashes, you are pretty much going to have no negative side effects, and you will avoid any chance of getting those problems. So there's no real downside. So I would say yes. Of course, if you're nervous about doing this, if you're nervous about tweaking settings and making ini files, then, don't do it. But then you're probably not pushing your system to its absolute limits. If you are the sort of person who's tweaking UGrids to load and so on, you should be pretty comfortable tweaking the SKSE ini, for example. But seeing as the chances are future versions of SKSE are going to come with this built in, and all you have to do is enable it in an ini file, why not? Honestly, this really does look like an incredible find, and I've got to take my hats off to the original author, the original finder, Shezon. He put all the details of how to make this, and the SKSE team and the mod author of SSME are using the information he provided them. So, you know, basically kudos to everyone all round. And as I said, if you're going to do this, you may as well use Shezon's logger as well. It is very useful indeed. It will allow you to see if you're getting any benefit from this and if you need it. And obviously, if you use the logger and you notice the memories getting up in the 240s, it might be worth enabling this anyway, because you're pretty close to having a problem. Okay guys, I realise this was long, techie, nerdy, and probably not useful for many people, but I'm hoping for the people who were considering using this patch, it does answer the questions you have about it, it does allay any fears you have, and does show you how to use it and how to use it responsibly. That is about it for this video. If you do have any questions, you feel free to post them down below. However, you're probably going to get a far more informed answer if you contact Shezon, either on a forum or on the mod page down below for the logger. He knows all about this, and he will be able to give you a far more definitive answer than I. I am, of course, going to be ending this video with some screenshots that you guys have been posting. Thank you for that. And if you want to post a screenshot for me to use, go along to the link, another link down below. This one is to my Nexus Skyrim Mod Sanctuary page, and post an image there. And thank you very much for doing so. I will be looking around for the next target of a Skyrim Mod Sanctuary, and I hope you guys can join me for that. Of course, you can join me on any of my other videos as well, but whichever video you decide to join me on, until then, as always, have fun.